most merciful thing in the world is the inability of the human mind to correlate all its contents. The sciences, each straining in its own direction, have hitherto harmed us little, but someday the piecing together of disassociated knowledge will open up such terrifying vistas of reality that we shall either go mad from the revelation or flee from the deadly light into the peace and safety of a new dark age. H.P. Lovecraft. In a broadly interdisciplinary inquiry such as this, communication itself can pose quite a challenge. Typically, the greatest difficulties in communication will occur when one is questioning something already known to be true on matters of underlying principle. The confidence behind established ideas can be so high that discussion itself may seem quite senseless. This difficulty is aggravated by fragmentation of the process by which information is gathered and evaluated. The specialization of intellectual inquiry carries with it certain risks when assumptions within one discipline rest upon prior assumptions in other disciplines. No one can be an expert on everything, and when considering possibilities outside one's personal expertise, it is only natural to defer to what specialists in other studies claim to know. I've always thought this. It's one thing. It needs to line up. If it doesn't, then something's wrong. That's why I wanted to bring this to you and make you aware of it. It just takes the words right out of my mind. No one can be an expert on everything. And when considering possibilities outside one's personal expertise, it is only natural to defer to what specialists in other studies claim to know. But what are the consequences of this when theoretical suppositions, though perceived as fact, cannot account for compelling new fields of data? Given the extreme fragmentation of established science today, it is difficult to imagine that the enterprise as a whole could ever correlate all its contents. Yet extraordinary strides toward that someday envisioned by Lovecraft may now be possible through a new approach, one in which electrical phenomena receive the full attention they deserve, and all appropriate fields of evidence are included. To some, the prospects may appear every bit as disturbing as Lovecraft imagined. But for those who instinctively seek out unifying principles, the new horizons will be at once breathtaking and hopeful. This introduction will present a new deep focus lens for viewing the physical universe from subatomic particles to galactic realms unknown before the Hubble telescope. The electric universe is a holistic answer to myopia. Myopia, that narrowing of vision which naturally accompanies the fragmentation of knowledge and learning. For those with the courage to see clearly, the required unlearning of fashionable ideas carries no real cost whatsoever. The terror Lovecraft envisioned is only the first rush of uncertainty, when ideas long taken for granted are thrown into question by facts and simple reasoning previously ignored. The piecing together of disassociated knowledge will only require us to confront the deep contradictions in things experts have long claimed to know. And I know that many of you have felt this like I have. I think that what he said right there is probably the reason why I do this. I do see it clearly. In every realm of science there is some kind of a problem. I don't mean to bring my commentary with it. I'm just sharing my thoughts with you at the same time. I will try to refrain. The piecing together of disassociated knowledge will only require us to confront the deep contradictions in things experts have long claimed to know. With the courage to see clearly, the adventure itself could well be the most merciful thing in the world, adding new insights into the greatest dramas of early human history and vital perspective to humanity's situation in the cosmos. Lovecraft did not realize that the terrifying vistas are but a mirage seen through an open door. The truth is always unified, and as such, it can only be friendly to those who seek the truth first. As we pass through the door, it is not fear that goes with us, but the exhilaration of discovery. Wallace Thornhill and David Talbot. Myopia is, a definition. That's good. A disinclination to knowledge, the existence of something. I've always believed that everything one reads after a word they don't understand, they do not comprehend, because of that word. That's why I try to provide definitions when I come across a word that I don't use that often. All right. Synopsis 2. The electric universe. The electric universe model is a coherent big picture of our situation in the universe, spanning many disciplines. It highlights repeated electrical patterns at all scales that enable laboratory experiments to explain the strange, energetic events seen, for example, in deep space, on the Sun, and on Jupiter's moon Io. The electric universe works backward, in time, using observations rather than forward from some idealized theoretical beginning. It provides simple answers to problems that are now clothed in fashionable metaphysics and mysticism. It is more interdisciplinary and inclusive of information than any prior cosmology. It points to practical possibilities far beyond the limits set by current science. The electric universe model grew out of a broad interdisciplinary approach to science. It is not a technique taught in universities. The electric universe is based more on observations and experiment than abstract theory. It recognizes connections between diverse disciplines. It concludes that the crucial requirement for understanding the universe is to take fully into account the basic electrical nature of atoms and their interactions. Strangely, this is not the case in conventional cosmology, where weaker magnetism and the infinitely weaker force of gravity rule the cosmos. Such a simplification may suit a theoretical physics based on electrical neutrality of matter in earthly laboratories, but it does not apply in science where plasma dominates. Plasma has been called the fourth state of matter, after solids, liquids, and gases. Most of the matter in the universe is in the form of plasma. A plasma is formed if some of the negatively charged electrons are separated from their host atoms in a gas, leaving the atoms with a positive charge. The negatively charged electrons and the positively charged atoms, known as positive ions, are then free to move separately under the influence of an applied voltage or magnetic field. Their net movement constitutes an electrical current. So, one of the more important properties of a plasma is that it can conduct electrical current. It does so by forming current filaments that follow magnetic field lines. Filamentary patterns are ubiquitous in the cosmos. Synopsis 3, A Little History. To be sure, nature distributes her gifts unevenly among her children. But there are plenty of well-endowed, thank God, and I am firmly convinced that most of them live quiet, unobtrusive lives. Albert Einstein. The pieces of the electric universe, big picture, are supplied by some remarkable individuals, most of them unknown, and who have lived or are living quiet, unobtrusive lives, away from universities. For those with a sense of history, this fact should serve to increase curiosity rather than dull it. Most revolutions in science have come from people who taught themselves outside the academic system and were not constrained by the fallacies and fashions of the day. It has been well documented that modern institutions of science operate in such a way as to enforce conformity and prevent research and publication of revolutionary ideas. J.R. Saul argues that medieval scholasticism was re-established during the 20th century, and how, if so, the new Enlightenment will have to come before from outside academia. Amen. Ra. For me, Enlightenment began with the controversial polymath and author of Worlds in Collision, Immanuel Velikovsky, in 1950. He demonstrated an interdisciplinary, comparative technique for uncovering hard evidence of planetary catastrophe from the recorded memories of the earliest civilizations. His method was forensic, in that he looked for reports of physical events of a highly unusual nature that were nonetheless corroborated globally by totally separate creatures, by totally separate creatures. Then, by applying scientific knowledge of cause and effect, it was possible to build a very detailed model of the sequence of those events. Finally, the model enabled specific predictions to be made and confirmed, a requirement of a good scientific theory. Some of the predictions he made were outrageous at the time. Venus would be near incandescently hot, Jupiter would emit radio noise. The moon rocks would be magnetized, and so on. Velikovsky was right. Astronomers of the day were wrong. However, you will not find any textbook that gives him credit because his theory was judged to be wrong. Presumably, they were all lucky guesses. Right. It became clear to Velikovsky that Newton's concept of gravity was insufficient to explain the reported behavior of the planets, and it certainly could not answer the obvious question: why do the skies look so peaceful now? This allowed a dogmatic response by academia to Velikovsky's seminal breakthrough. It was said his theory didn't obey Newton's laws. But what did Newton know of electricity? And if anyone believes that Newton's laws guarantee a stable planetary system, think again. Any gravitational system with more than 2 orbiting bodies is unstable. Yet, the question is hardly ever asked, let alone answered, what produces the observed stability of the solar system? Velikovsky was convinced that the clue lay in his discovery that electrical forces dominate the incredibly weak force of gravity at times of planetary close encounters, although he was unable to explain at the time how this would create the observed stability of the solar system. With his uncanny prescience, he had pointed the way to the electric universe. I think I see the same thing in everything that he says. In all of his stuff, it's exactly what he does. Since then, skeptical scholars have shown Velikovsky's historical perspective of cataclysmic events to be wrong. However, his basic premise of planetary encounters has been confirmed, and the details fleshed out to an extraordinary degree. Several pioneering researchers in this new field now agree that awe-inspiring planetary encounters did occur in prehistory. The most ancient civilizations, they were culturally defining memory. To the most ancient civilizations, they were a culturally defining memory. They were the inspiration for pyramids, megaliths, statues, totems, and sacred rock art. The survivors of global upheaval felt it imperative that the memory be preserved and passed down faithfully to future generations in the expectation that the gods would return. The memorialization took the form of architecture, ritual, and story to reenact to the apocalyptic power of the planetary gods over human destiny. Such a catastrophic beginning explains why civilization appeared like a thunderclap out of nowhere. Unfortunately, with no reference points in the present behavior of the planets, the stories lost their real meaning. This short explanation may seem contrived until the wealth of supporting evidence can be presented. However, it highlights the crucial distinction between planetary catastrophism of the electric universe and the neo-catastrophists, who attempt to explain the evidence for planetary encounters in terms of cometary phenomena. Oh man, I mean, every program I watch, whether it's by Graham Hancock or anybody else, it's always a comet impact. Modern comets simply do not fit the descriptions from the past, nor can they account for abundant evidence of fresh-looking planetary cratering and scarring. Besides, in an electric universe, comets are not the apocalyptic threat to Earth imaginatively portrayed by artists. Such pictures are entirely fanciful because a comet would be disrupted electrically by a cosmic thunderbolt before it hit the Earth. The only visible evidence remaining, an electric arc crater like Meteor Crater in Arizona. The electric universe model grew from the realization that a new plasma cosmology and an understanding of electrical phenomena in space could illuminate the new work being done in comparative mythology. In return, the images of events witnessed in the prehistoric sky and their sequence could help unravel the recent history of the Earth, Mars, and Venus. By accepting data over a far wider span of knowledge in human existence than conventional cosmology allows, the electric universe model began to provide pragmatic and common-sense answers to many questions that seem unrelated. It followed the entreaty of the Nobel Prize winning plasma physicist and cosmologist Hans Alfvén to work backwards in time from observations rather than forward from some idealized theoretical beginning. We have to learn again that science without contact with experiments is an enterprise which is likely to go completely astray into imaginary conjecture. Imaginary Conjecture. Evolution of the Solar System, NASA, 1976, Hans L. Fane and G. Arrhenius. The result is now a big picture that emphasizes our dramatic prehistory and essential connectedness to the universe. No longer do we have to look at ourselves and the universe through the distorting sideshow mirrors of modern science. The implications of electrical activity between planets will be profoundly disturbing for those who have built their cosmology around the weak force of gravity, acting in an electrically sterile universe. This strange dogmatic oversight guarantees that nothing will remain in future of the fanciful Big Bang theory or the simplistic story of the formation of the solar system. What Big Bang? The Big Bang is already dead. The unheralded Galileo of the 20th century, Halt and Arp, has proven that the universe is not expanding. The Big Bang theory is based on a misinterpretation of redshift. The redshift of a distant galaxy is measured in the light coming from that galaxy. Lines in the spectrum of that galaxy show a shift toward the red compared with the same lines from our sun. Arp discovered that high and low redshift objects are sometimes connected by a bridge or jet of matter. So redshift cannot be a measure of distance. Most of the redshift is intrinsic to the object, but there is more. Arp found that the intrinsic redshift of a quasar or galaxy took discrete values, which decreased with distance from a central active galaxy. In Arp's new view of the cosmos, active galaxies give birth to high redshift quasars and companion galaxies. Redshift becomes a measure of the relative ages of nearby quasars and galaxies, not their distance. As a quasar or galaxy ages, the redshift decreases in discrete steps, or quanta. The huge puzzle for astrophysicists is why a galaxy should exhibit an atomic phenomena. So we turn to particle physics. This difficulty highlights the fact that quantum mechanics applied to atoms is a theory without physical reality. The weirdness of quantum theory has been attributed to the subatomic scale to which it applies. But now that we have quantum effects in something the size of a galaxy, this convenient nonsense is exposed. If Arp is right, many experts are going to look very silly. His discovery sounded the alarm in some halls of academia, and since nobody likes a loud noise, particularly if they are asleep, the knee-jerk response was to attack the guy with his finger on the alarm button. Arp's telescope time was denied, papers rejected. He was forced to leave the U.S. to pursue his work. And it goes on. Number 5 is electric galaxies. And 5 electric galaxies. For more than 10 years, plasma physicists have had an electrical model of galaxies. It works with real-world physics. The model is able to successfully account for the observed shapes and dynamics of galaxies without recourse to invisible dark matter and central black holes. It explains simply the powerful electric jets seen issuing along, I'm not familiar with that word there, issuing along the spin axis from the cores of active galaxies. Recent results from mapping the magnetic field of a spiral galaxy confirm the electric model. On the other hand, cosmologists cannot explain why spiral shapes are so common, and they have only ad hoc explanations for galactic magnetic fields. More recently, intergalactic magnetic fields have been discovered, which is the final straw to break the camel's back. Incredible gravitational models involving invisible black holes have had to be invented in a desperate attempt to explain how the attractive force of gravity can result in matter being ejected in a narrow jet at relativistic speeds. Why do we accept such science fiction as fact when an electric universe predicts spiral shapes, magnetic fields, and jets? The cosmic magnetic fields simply delineate the electric currents that create, move, and light the galaxies. And the next one is number 6, Electric Stars. So I'll stop there and say, come on over here and check it out. I want to keep this video short and sweet and pithy. Thanks for watching. Wallace Thornhill, and that can be seen right here on his page that I will provide a link to in the description on his website, hollowscience.com. Thanks for listening. Hi, I just wanted to let you know that I just did an interview or a show with a pleasant fellow named Dave from the Oppenheimer Ranch project, going to air tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern. And if you can get a chance to get over there, I promised him that I would be in the chat room, and I'll have to listen to myself, I guess. I was as nervous as all get out. So if you notice my voice fluttering and me going a few times, I was nervous, but I tried to answer his questions as best as I could, and I suppose the more I do it, the better I'll get. I just was. I knew that a lot of people would be listening to it, and I was coming off the hip, so. But for me, it's not about the messenger, but the message. So oftentimes, us humans make it about the messenger, and a lot of things with mainstream science is just that. It's about the personality and not content. I did one other one back in the winter time with my friend Slightly Slanted Sleuth for the Truth. I definitely recommend you stop by his site and check him out. He's very interesting too. And I'll provide a link to both. I was nervous then too. I hope you tune in and join me there. All right. Take care. I'll see you on down the road.